So today my bike is back on the lift, and maybe the last project, maybe not. I've said this so many times before, and yet here I go, I continue to do this because I got the plastic tank delivered from Brian in Western Australia yesterday or the day before, and just looking at it, and I'm going to replace the silver tank with that tank because it's double the capacity. The silver tank holds 5 litres, of which about 4.5 are usable for me, and the reason for that is because where the petcock is on this tank and the angle that it's at on the frame means there's some fuel at the back here that I never get to use. Now that's different with this tank because, if I'll just get that lined up, because the petcock is right at the back of the tank, and this tank holds 10 litres versus the 5 litres of the silver tank, so it gives me more options. One, it gives me the range I need, so 10 litres in there, 5 litres under the seat, gives me a 450 kilometre range. And let's not forget, I still have the jerry can on the back. However, Brian gave me a good idea for this, and that is not to use that for fuel, but to use it for water. Obviously, I'll get another container that hasn't had petrol in it. That would be a wise thing to do, I reckon. But that will give me 5 litres of water, which will be just fantastic to have when I'm traversing the very dry parts of the country. So that's the project for today. I'm not going to dwell on about it. It's not going to be an easy process. I know that from my previous tank installation, but they're always doable in some way or form, and I bought a whole lot of materials from Bunnings, which I think will do the job for me. So I'm going to get onto that. All right, so what I've done is, using my drill press, I have let me just get it, where have I put it? Oh, here we go. A rasp that I put this in the drill at about 2,500 revs in my drill press, so it's nice and steady, and I've kind of ground that down from that diameter, which is obviously too big to go into, and I want it in, it's got to go into this, the old ignition position, this ignition switch position on both sides, and I'm going to then use that as a kind of a rubberized mount to hang a bracket down that's going to then secure the tank in place at the front. So that's the general idea. So that goes in there nice and snug, and the one on the other side is slightly wider in diameter, not slightly, a lot wider. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to deal with that because it's about 5 millimeters wider than the ignition switches. So I have to come up with another plan for the other side. That is not going to do the job. The diameter is too small. So I'm going to have to scout around in my garage for something else in my workshop, or I'm going to have to somehow build this up using other materials. That's another option. We'll see how we go. Right, so a trip to Bunnings, and I've got the perfect These are just door stops that go on the ground, but it's just perfect to go in behind on the other side of the ignition switch where the old ignition switch position was. It's going to go in there. It just fits perfectly, and it'll butt up against the one I put from that side, this side. So I have a solution for that. Then I've got a threaded bar that will go through. I'll just drill a 12mm hole through the center of those. This will go through both of those, and I'll make little hangers to go and hang down from there. So that's the general idea going forward. Then on the back of the tank over here, I'm going to just use a hose clamp, and I bought this fitting from Bunnings. I'm going to cut it there. It's 50mm, which is exactly the diameter of this down tube, and so that'll go around the down tube just to hold this clamp in position, and I'm going to make a little steel strap that will come from that clamp around the back of the tank. So it's going to, if I can show you here, it'll come up from underneath here on the down tube, come up around here, and it's going to screw into this little threaded hole here, and that will hold the tank down firmly on the back. Underneath it here on the down tube, I'm just going to pack it with some pool noodle material, and I've got some other backing foam that I'll use. I might just line the back this with some of that backing foam. It's adhesive, and that'll prevent this from rubbing against any of the wiring underneath the tank, and just causing sort of friction wear on the plastic itself. So that's the plan, and we'll see how things progress from this point. All right, that was a bit of a mission. Took me most of the day, but the tank's on, very solid. What I did, I was going to mount it using an arrangement through the old ignition position, but I discovered that I could use the mount for this crash bar and put a coupler on there, and then I manufactured some bushings out of door stoppers, believe it or not. This side it's a white one, but they work, just to give it a bit of cushioning so that we don't get vibration directly coming through. But it's on very, very solid. I'm really happy with that. And all I have to do now is plumb this in. This is the fuel line here, but the diameter of the outlet on the tank is too big for this fuel line, so I'm going to have to go tomorrow and get a different diameter fuel line and some sort of converter so that I can convert it back down to the right diameter at the carby end here. So the arrangement will stay exactly the same. This inlet will come in to the main feed of this carby, and if I want to use fuel from this tank, I switch over to this tank on this switch over lever here. See, it's a bit bent. I don't know what happened there, must have kicked it at some stage. Anyway, so that's the arrangement, and that's not changing. So I'll plumb this in tomorrow and we'll be good to go. And then I'm going to order another jerry can for the back here, a clean one that I can then use as a water container instead of fuel, and that'll be it. So I'll update you once I'm all done and I got the bike off the lift. All right, I think I'm done now. Of course, that'll all change the minute something else happens or goes wrong. What I've done today, yesterday I finished the tank, of course, installed that new tank, but today I plumbed it in. So there's the feeder hose coming from the tank there down into the carby. So that's all plumbed in. I've got fuel in there and the fuel's running through, so that's all good. Put a little breather hose on the cap. So that's the petrol tank done. The other thing I did was I put new rubbers on my foot pegs. The others were a bit cracked and worn, so I thought I'd just do that. So that's done. The other thing I've done is silicone sealed the inside of this box in all the joints. Added this little cable here just to stop it opening too wide. The hinges are only riveted on, so I thought I'd just stop it from pulling those hinges loose as best I can. I don't think it's it'll be surprising if it lasts. Anyway, I'll just buy another one and bolt it on if it doesn't. The other thing I did was I increased the preload on my shocks. Let's see if I can get that camera in there. Anyway, yeah, increase the preload by, there you go, now you can see it, by, I don't know, probably about 5 mils. 3 turns I put on each side, and just to handle the additional weight that this is going to be carrying on the back of the bike. And yeah, like I said previously, when after I put these shocks on, I was really happy, and it gives a nice comfortable ride, and but it did bottom out a couple of times in on some big dips on the dirt when Keith and I went for a ride, so I thought I'd just increase that preload. I think the damping on them is good. It rides pretty stable. So that's all done. Put some reflector tape on the back, on the tube, and this will be covered largely by my drone case when that's on there. But in the meantime, it's just a bit more visibility for a little bike like this. Always a good thing. And it's very agricultural, so I don't care what it looks like. So that's it, all done and dusted as far as I'm concerned. And on Tuesday week, it goes in for putting another new back tire on, get the rear brake checked, new chain and sprockets, and I'm keeping the same gearing. I'm keeping one tooth down on the front, which is a 14 tooth, to a 45 on the rear, and the 14 tooth just enables us bike to hold a gear a little longer when you hit a hill. It's pointless having a long gearing on this bike when it can't hold revs. So that's the reason why I did that, and we're good to go. So that's it. I'm going to pack up and go home.